Pete, welcome to the Follow Boss Method webinar. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here to share this morning. Talk real estate and systems and models and accountability. Super excited.
Awesome. So why don't you give us a little bit of your background, maybe even like early life, kind of how you got, up to getting into real estate and how and why you got into real estate.
Sure. So I remember the first bus ride. We don't want to go back that far. Kindergarten forward, right? Yeah. No.
Hey, whatever works for you.
Yeah. No. Grew up in South Dakota. I'm a native South Dakota, and there's 5 of us. I left the state, so there's 4 left, and moved to Arizona in 1998 as an investor. Bought some investment properties. Got my license. Started off with Caldwell Banker, and then moved to Realty Executives. Owned my own brokerage after Realty Executives, and that was following the 2008 crash. We opened up a brokerage. We specialized in commercial. We moved from residential and commercial just to commercial, and specifically in the multifamily arena. And then about 3 years later, 2011, 10, moved to Keller Williams, and brought us in as from a brokerage as a small team before teams were really grabbing a lot of traction. And about a year later, the owner of the franchise asked me if I would run one of the Keller Williams offices. So I ran an office with 186 agents. A couple of years later, I took over the other Keller Williams office. So our franchise for KW down here consisted of 2 major offices and a couple of outlying offices. It consisted of about 486 agents. 5 years ago, stepped down from leadership with Keller Williams as a CEO from KW here in Tucson, and opened up what's now the Stratton Group. I have a business partner. Her name is Angie Kuzma. She was one of our top agents at the Market Center. And I asked her to be my business partner. She was going through a business split, and she said absolutely not. She would never have another business partner. So it took us about a year and a half of running businesses side by side, and she finally caved in. I bribed her with enough ice cream, and we decided to get business together. We took our names off of our respective businesses, and we started what's now the Stratton Real Estate Group. And so that kind of brings us up to where we're at with organization and what we look like.
That's awesome. Cool. And I want to dig a little bit later more into the partnership and both what that looks like and kind of how that evolved, because I think that is definitely relevant to a lot of people around. So,
Sure.
And before we dig in too deep to any topics, I'm going to do a quick poll and just get an idea of who's on the session, just so we can be sure that we're really relevant to the people we've got on. So I'm going to just launch that super quick here.
Super cool. Yeah, and maybe while we're taking the poll, I think one of the things that, and I don't know that a lot of people know this, but the Stratton Real Estate Group, I think now it actually consists of a number of different. We're a little bit different. We're not just a residential sales group, and so that's been kind of one of the cool things that we've gone through the last couple of years.
That's great. Yeah, I think one of the things that is definitely a blessing and a curse about this business is that there's no one way to do it.
Yeah,
which is great. But by the same token, there's really no clear, there's the red book, there's some, I would still argue that that's even a guideline. It's pretty clear, but there's no one specific way to do it. So and we've got some great participation. So it looks like we're pretty even, honestly, across solo agent, team member. I'm going to end this and I can share it. I don't think the results actually show up on the recordings. I'll screenshot it real quick, but looks like we're pretty even. Solo agent, team member, team leader, and more boutique broker owners, a couple of franchise and a couple of others who are, I say the others are my people, operations and marketing. And
yeah,
because I'm just kind of an other. So it's all good. But let me screenshot that super quick. And then why don't we talk a little bit about, I guess, the evolution of kind of what you just talked about, what was the evolution from you being probably more so being a team leader at KW into where you are now?
Yeah. It was a different mind shift being a broker owner of my own brokerage, moving in the KW model, what they call a team leader, CEO of a market center, and that was much more. As a broker owner, you're so focused on compliance. You're looking at growth and building a business, but as a team leader, that role is really geared towards growth and implementing systems and models to drive revenue, to drive growth, drive culture. For us coming out of that and back into a team model, which is what we have, we really focused on the residential team. Our goal was to get to the point we closed 250 transactions in Tucson this last year. We have expansion locations, so we have a couple agents on the residential team in Phoenix, and then our commercial team was the second part of that. So we actually have 6 brokers that focus on multifamily brokerage. And moving in, and kind of what you were alluding to, there's a book called Rocketfuel. It's a fantastic read, and it really splits the visionary and the integrator roles, much like KW set up their offices, where you have one person that's driving growth, another person, kind of like you're talking about, Lee, that in your roles is more of that operational side, implementing and executing on the systems and models. And so we really focused on building out a residential team. We've got 16 agents in Tucson and 2 expansion partners in Phoenix. And then we focused on the expansion of the commercial group. And then last year we bought a property management company, and then we moved into insurance. So that's kind of what our business looks like.
That's awesome. I love that, like org chart style and both that path. And I think I definitely want to get more into ancillary businesses, joint ventures, whatever different people call them in different markets at some point as well. But let's talk a little bit now, I guess, about the partnership and kind of how that worked, because you just mentioned the roles, and I think that's a key part of the partnership, obviously.
Yeah, and I think the Red Book, the MREA, what you're referring to, it's really a rainmaker model that is taught through the book. So if you go through that book, it's about going through 7 levels of production and stepping out of the business and hiring a CEO to run your business. And philosophically, I made it my mind after the '08 crisis, and I went back into business a second time, and then moved to KW, that I was just never going to, for me personally, I don't want to do anything by myself again. I want to have great partnerships, understanding that if I get in business with the right person, they've got strengths that I don't, and vice versa, and figuring out what that looks like. So philosophically, we kind of go against the KW model that way as a partnership, because we're not married, we're business partners. And she's a rock star. I mean, Angie is one of the most talented people I've ever had the opportunity of doing business with, and she gets to be my partner. And I have a tendency not to have much of a filter, so she tends to be the filter that keeps us out of the rocks. And I get the text that says, "Hey, that's enough, shut it down." So, but it's really that. So for her in our business, I focus on the growth, the key relationships, coaching and developing, expansion. And Angie, really everybody operationally works for Angie, and she runs the operational side of all the businesses.
Yeah, and that's great to structure it that way. I think a lot of people, you and I talked a little bit about this, because I was in a situation too where people said, "Hey, partners, like that's crazy. You guys are so different and you do different things. Like that's never going to work." And now I think we see it a lot more. And I think, again, to reference Rocketfuel, for those who aren't familiar with the book, Megan dropped it in the chat, but for those who aren't familiar with the book, it's basically the idea that, you essentially need a visionary and an integrator in every business, and something I always say is that it's really hard to be the top of the funnel and then do all the work.
Yeah.
Like you're never going to generate 1 million leads if you're the one that has to call them.
Yeah, and that's for sure. And I think, that's a struggle for a lot of smaller teams, so if you've got a small team kind of making that leap, you need resources, you need capital, you need talent before you can really afford them. And it's kind of getting over that hump, and for us, it was basically going, okay, you have a unique skill set and you can work in the business while I work on the business, and our goal was a foot race to $100 million. We just made up our mind that was kind of the first benchmark that we wanted to get to. And so I just kept working on the drive and the growth until we moved into this shift. We were incredibly growth oriented. And so it allowed Angie to be in the business, working with Follow Up Boss and CSU and some of our systems, and holding our agents accountable and helping us build in kind of that rhythm and cadence of accountability that we were talking about.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I feel like I should be careful saying this, but a lot of the people that I have either worked with or know that are, Follow Up Boss users, really any CRM, the people who get the most adoption from it are pretty much always the people that have got somebody dedicated to it. It's not, people like you they're not a CRM person. They do not want to sit at a desk and put people into a thing and follow a plan and go to a training session. They want to go out and shake hands and make stuff happen.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to, if you're going to have more than 2 people, you probably have to have some sort of general plan for running a business. So putting that person in that seat, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're on this, if you're on the beginning end of building out your business, whether you're a solo agent or a small team, we live in an environment, especially now. I mean, here we are doing a Zoom call, in a webinar. I had never done a Zoom interview in the last 15 years, and this week I think I've done 6 or 7. So we've moved from being a physically based world digitally enhanced to a digitally based world physically enhanced. The Amazon's the world, right? And so the gift to smaller teams and solo agents is there's talent out there, that you can access that can come in, whether that's virtual assistants and using this for communication and accountability with that person around your business, and getting a very cost effective way to get somebody who's really, really good at those skill sets until you can hire somebody in full time to help you.
Yeah.
And
And,
getting
and to be fair, yeah. And one other point I think that bears mentioning, I know it seems scary financially, but the idea of bringing in a true partner, it doesn't always have to be a 50-50 or anything like that, but bringing in
yeah,
a true partner that feels invested, that, I think a lot of times people are scared of talent because they're gonna take the leads, or it's not gonna work. I mean, you told me a short story about Angie with that. I don't know if it's appropriate to share, but just the idea of like,
sure.
people are always scared that, oh, you're gonna get all. Here's the secret sauce: you work hard and you have a plan and you execute it. They're not gonna steal
Yeah.
your secret sauce.
No, I think I call it the stupid tax. We have our tax, and there's a stupid tax, right? You make dumb choices, you make stupid choices. There's a tax associated with that, right? And so, what Lee was referring to is very early on in our business, we had hired a lead buyer's agent that came on, knocked it out of the park, and then subsequently left our team and took all of our staff, or all of our agents and a couple of our staff, and we literally had to back up. And one of the things we were talking about today, we wanted to cover was, being able to scale up your business is finding great talent. Being able to recruit, find, and retain great talent. And there's a process to it. No different than there's a process to our leads that we're running through our systems and Follow Boss. There's a process to hiring, retaining, and creating opportunity for great talent. And so when you hire somebody, you got to make sure that they're the right person that you want to be with. You hire for who they are, and then you train for skill. You don't recruit in skill and then hope culturally that they're a great fit. And unfortunately, that was a lesson that we had to learn the hard way. And just figuring out that rhythm and that cadence of hiring and recruiting and developing talent.
I would argue there's not a way to find that out without doing it. Everybody I know who's at a high level has pretty much had that happen. Half the team has left, or something crazy happened, or sometimes you just have to do it and then pick up the pieces and keep doing it.
Yeah. And, the cool thing is, if you do it once, you can do it twice, and then you know what not to do, and ideally, we could do a whole webinar on my poor choices, on my stupid tax. We could label the webinar Pete's Stupid Tax, but it really is, it's going through that. And the cool thing with, again, with where we're at, with YouTube and Facebook and the webinars and the coaching and, case studies, that didn't exist 10 years ago. It didn't exist 5 years ago like it does now. And so being able to go, oh, there's something I can rip off and duplicate and implement my business tomorrow. I can take, the 4 disciplines of execution, and I can implement that in my business right away.
Right. Why don't you, can you tell a little more about 4 disciplines for people that aren't familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called the 4DX principle. D as in dog, X as in X-ray. The 4 disciplines of execution. It's a book written by Sean Covey. It's Stephen Covey's oldest son. And it's a fantastic read. And it talks about creating WIGs, wildly important goals for your business, and then finding lead indicators that feed into those wildly important goals, creating a scoreboard of accountability for yourself or for your team, and then creating a cadence of accountability. And those are the 4 DX principles. And if you haven't read that book, read it, listen to it. It has been a fantastic implementation into our business. It's been one of the cornerstones that's allowed us to scale at a high level. We'll probably end up somewhere around 550 to 600 closings this year, depending on and I can tell you that a large portion of that doubling our growth year over year has been because we've gotten better about executing the 4DX principle in our business.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic read.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then that kind of segues us right into, I think, the culture segment here a bit. You've got to be obviously intentional about that, but I think having a measuring stick, so to speak, something like 4 disciplines or just some sort of a mission statement. It doesn't have to be, super complicated, but just some driving force that everybody is moving towards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we're really vocal about it. We gamify everything. I think we sat down. I do every fall. I take everybody off site. We go get a nice conference room, have a couple of our vendors bring in meals, that kind of a thing. And we do a 1-day business planning clinic for everybody on the teams. And when they get done, they've got an economic model, they got a lead generation model, they got a budget model, and they got an organizational model, all on one page. So they got 4 pages that map out what the upcoming year is going to look like based on what their goals are, what they want their business to look like. And, and at the beginning of every year, we have everybody on the team pick out a word that's important to them for their business that year, and then also what their number is. So when you're talking about the culture of the company, everybody in our world has a number. Everybody in the team has a number. And so whether that's 10 real estate conversations if they're on the real estate side, whether that's number of transaction for the transaction coordinators, number of conversion, our lead coordinator working with Follow Up Boss and their group, it's 2.5% conversion ratio. That's our goal this year, and it's kind of cool. I don't know if you can see it, but this year we actually went out and made bracelets and had them labeled. And on the back of the bracelet, I don't know if you can see that or not, but we had, my word was execute, and then the number of transactions we want to have for the year. So we got bracelets for everybody in the team. Everybody has got them. And it's just like, it keeps it in front of them, just a reminder about what my word is and what my goal is for this year.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's really good. I wish more people did that. And then that kind of tees up the accountability side of things too, right? Because then you've got a clear culture, you've got some clear goals, you got clear, I don't even want to call them KPIs. That's almost too big a word, it's like starchy of a word. Like you've created this vision of what happens if they do those things, if they hit their number, and if they have a clear focus on a word or on a goal or on a path. So like, how does that drive accountability, and or what else do you do for maybe like segmented accountability? Like you can't just set a goal and be like, oh, it's the end of the year. Like, how do you check in on those goals?
Right. So for the 4DX principle, our wildly important goal at the beginning of the year, we closed 250 transactions last year on the residential team. So for the residential group, our wild goal was to close 777 houses. That was the number. And so that was our wildly important goal as far around productivity. And so then we just broke that down into, okay, what are the lead indicators that are going to drive us to that number at the end of the year? And then you chunk that down by the month, and then by the week, and then by the day. And so everybody on the team has a 1-page goal planning that they update every week. We coach all the agents either in group style or one-on-one once a week, and they have to bring their goal sheet. Here's my annual goals, my monthly goals, my weekly goals. And then on a daily execution, we run a system called SISU, SISU. And there's also, prior to that, we had run Commitment to Excellence. So if you're a small team, Commitment to Excellence is a very affordable way to do that. SISU is not much different. There was some integration benefits for us with Follow Up Boss. So Follow Up Boss and SISU, those two integrate. And so we look at our numbers at a leaderboard, all of our lead indicators in the morning. We do a gratitude huddle at 9:15. So everybody comes in 9:15, and we just start off. Hey, what's a good thing in your life? What's a blessing in your life? What's something good that happened yesterday in productivity? And what was your number for yesterday, and did you hit it? So the 10 real estate conversations, whatever that's going to be, and we go right down that leaderboard. And I'm happy to show you.
And that's as a group? That's as a group, right? Okay.
Yeah. So right now we're doing it virtually, right? So everybody gets on and we just start off. We go, okay, Lee, what are you grateful for? What's a blessing in your life? All right, what's your number? You committed to 10 real estate conversations. You have to have 50 for the week. You're at 29. You're supposed to be at 30. What are you going to do differently today? And you're going to add that one onto the 10 today to get you back online for your goal. And who are you going to commit to on the team to doing that? Okay, Megan's going to hold you accountable. Great, Megan. Make sure you two talk this afternoon at 5:00 and you guys get it. All right, next one. And
that's awesome.
Literally walk around the Zoom call and 15 to 20 minutes tops.
That's
And then you
great.
finish off with something motivational. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my next question. How many people and how long? So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got, so we end up with 25 to 30 people on that call. And we don't run, actually, yesterday, Angie ran the meeting yesterday, and we have a closed group chat. And one of our agents was like, hey, that was the best meeting we've ever had. It was so short. I'm sorry, Pete, but that was really great, Angie. So this morning I was like, okay, Angie's running the meetings. Got it. I talked too much.
That's awesome. I love it though. But I mean, you know what? That's a part of growing a business and building a business, being open to feedback and doing whatnot. And it's not like you can disappear. You know, maybe you do Mondays and get everybody fired up, and then she runs them the rest of the week.
Yeah, and we do that. We do a sales meeting every Monday for an hour. So 9 o'clock on Mondays, and we really focus on coaching to sales, right? You know, we're salespeople in a sales business, and you know, we've got a full-time listing manager, full-time two transaction coordinators, a lead coordinator, a marketing director, and videographer, and a drone pilot. So everybody in our business is a specialist in something, and it took us 4 years to grow that. You know, so if you're at the beginning end of this, again, look at the 20% activities that have to happen, whether that's operational or whether that's in the sales side, and then you focus on those and you start banging on those drums until it starts a domino effect.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And something I want to say that actually just hit me this morning on another session I was on was the idea that, you know, kind of measuring those things and being aware of those things breeds more of it. I think a lot of people will get on a call like this and they'll hear somebody like you and they're like, he's got this big company, he's got all these pieces and these things, and he owns these other, and it doesn't feel attainable to them. The reality of it is that, you know, you ate that elephant one bite at a time too. You know, you added one person, then you added another person, and then you measured one thing, and then that made you want to measure another thing. You know, if you're like, okay, well, what happens is you go, why is it that way? You know, why, if we have more leads, why are we not having more closings? And then you dig into, oh, is it training? Is it the lead quality? Like and it just kind of breeds, it's a snowball effect. Probably not a good reference for somebody in Arizona, but
it's only 107 today, Lee.
Right. I mean, it'd be a quick thing. But, you know, the idea that it breeds more as you finally start, you know, as you start to do it.
Yeah. In fact, if you want, I'm happy to bring up Sisu and we can take a look at some of those lead indicators, and then kind of what you're talking about is coaching to the gap.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's look at that, and then we'll dig into what people want us to go deeper on. But I think Sisu and accountability is definitely one of them.
Sure. You want me to bring that up?
If you want to share your screen, I think that's.
Yeah, so here's the 4DX principle. This is just a diagram of that. So the discipline 1 is, you know, the wildly important goals. Discipline 2, act on the lead measures. 3, keeping a compelling scoreboard. Having a scoreboard, you know, it's funny, but we're like kids. You know, you ever watch kids on a basketball court at lunchtime, you know, playing, you know, they're throwing over their head and they're running out of bounds, and, you know, there's 10 kids chasing around. But as soon as you throw up a scoreboard and, you know, you put an extra 10 minutes on recess on the line, everybody gets competitive and starts playing differently. And so this is what this has done in our business, right? And creating that compelling scoreboard, and then the cadence of accountability. And that's what we were talking about with the morning huddles and such. So this is our Sisu board. And so this is basically what we're talking about. So everything, all these circles in the top, that's our buy side of our business. And then everything on the bottom is the listing side of our business. And it starts off on the far left-hand side here with conversations. So basically looking at it and going, all right, how many buyer appointments set do we need to buyer appointments met, to buyers signed, to buyers under contract, to buyers closed? And so those percentages in between is what you were talking about just a minute ago, Lee, where we can actually go in, and we do this for each one of our agents. So I can look at any single agent and look at this identical graph for their production. And if we can see that, you know, Rich on the team, his conversion ratio from met to signed is 37%, but he's getting enough of them, we know it's just a coaching conversation to a skill set. And so it just allows us to see what's really going on in the business versus what we feel like is going on in the business.
Right. And that's where you get into, you had mentioned the leading and the lagging indicators. You know, I think but again, I think that's an advanced skill. Mm-hmm. So as you start to track stuff, you can find the patterns, but you can't find a pattern until you track it. I know people are going to start asking, this data is pulling from Follow Up Boss. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes. So, that was the reason we went to Sisu, is because we moved to Follow Up Boss. And when we did that, we wanted to have a really deep look into that. And I know Follow Up Boss actually just launched their deal reporting and their metrics in Follow Up Boss. So if you're running Follow Up Boss and you haven't looked at that, they're building something similar of this into Follow Up Boss for you, so you don't have to go out and get a third-party vendor to do that if you choose to.
Yeah, so I think now we should ask people where we want to go, because I think something that's really great about you, especially Pete, is that you have an interesting jack of all trades, but you're a master of a few of them. You're not a master of none. I know this. So I'm going to throw up a quick poll and just see where people want us to go now. If we want to go deeper into the deals, which I think we'll do anyway. Just going to throw up a quick poll and see where people want to go next.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I saw something in the notes. That other system that I was talking about is Commitment to Excellence, and the CTE. Calvin Mergen is the gentleman that created Commitment to Excellence. So if you're looking for something that's Excel based, that's a great option. And if you're a single agent, and what I just showed you on Sisu, for 2 years, we did that on a piece of paper. We actually just wrote out conversations on the left-hand side, goal for appointments set, goal for appointments met, closings, and commission. And you just had one row for buyers and one row for sellers. So if you're at a place where financially you can't afford that, that's just a really simple way to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I do think sometimes people evolve into that. Everybody, again, sees this, you're maybe X years ahead of them, and they see the final product and they think, oh, I need that. And it's like, nah, maybe you just need a spreadsheet that you go over with your agents. I'm going to end this poll. We got some great answers. Pretty varied though. We're just going to talk about all of it.
Okay.
24% on Peach train wreck business choices to never replicate though. You want to, should we start there?
Who you're in business with matters. That's what I will tell you. If you want to sum up great business choice, start with great hires and great business partners, and making sure that there's no such thing as a 50-50 partnership. My business partner was diagnosed with ovarian cancer 2 years ago. And, there was a long period of time where she was traveling back and forth to Houston and wasn't able to participate in the business like she would like to. And understanding that if you get into business partnerships, there's just going to be times that are like that it's going to be heavier on your side. And you have to have those conversations before you get in business.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I think the next highest thing up, maybe we'll take these in order and do as many of them as you can. It looks like people want more on accountability and structure. And then also, starting growing a team was also kind of high. So if you're comfortable with it, maybe we start with, do this a little bit chronologically. Like if you had to start over tomorrow, how would you start that team? And then how would you bake in that accountability and the systems?
Okay, great question. So I think one of the things that we learned growing the business is, and I came out of leadership, from KW. And so we were a little bit unique in that respect. I came out of a salaried position in leadership from the market centers. And then Angie, she was in production. We took Angie out of production too fast. If we had to go back and do it again, Angie is a rock star listing agent. And when you're looking at it as a young business, you don't want to put your Michael Jordans as your coaches right away. You want to until you filled in that A talent behind them. And then it gets to the point where they're converting at a higher level than she's converting at. So I think going back and building out our business, I think getting really clear about what we wanted it to look like, what we wanted the end game to look like. And so, I think we were pretty good at that. We understand that we wanted to have multiple expansion partners in different cities. I think right now we're at 6. So we've got 6 agents in 6 different cities. So you've got to build a platform that's scalable. And There's a great book called Scale. Jeff Hoffman is the author of that book. If you're looking at building a team, that is a phenomenal read. And a couple of the core principles out of that is, building in your internal controls. And I think this is one of the things that Follow Up Boss has done really well, is they've helped us with the internal controls. So as our leads come through different stages, we're getting alerts based on behavior and timelines and automatic drips and email campaigns, those internal controls. So if we blow past it, if then what? So building systems, building internal controls, and then building your team. And if you can chunk it down in those three things, and then they all become scalable. And finding great talent is just, I can't put enough emphasis on that. Hiring one great admin will change your life. If you want to blow the production to a next level, look at your talent, or if you don't have an admin, you're looking at adding one on, getting somebody that understands, and it's going to be constant movement, and you need to have somebody that's a problem solver, because the problems that you're solving with 30 transactions versus 400 transactions, it's the same problems, they're just bigger.
Yeah.
Right. And
I like to call them better. It feels nicer to call them better problems, but
yeah. And I think one of the things that we gamify everything. So right now we took everybody in the commercial group, the property management group, or the residential group. We divide them into 3 teams of 8 people, and then we use Sisu. We use their scoring, and we have a leaderboard, so everybody can see it on their phones every day. And you get 2,500 points for an appointment set, and you get 5,000 points for appointment 1, either a contract on the buy side or a contract on the listing side. The team that gets the most points, we're going to take them to an escape room, do a night out. We're going to break out of an escape room, and then we're going to go for dinners and have cocktails, and then everybody gets $500. Each person on the team gets $500. And so gamifying it, the good internal competition has been phenomenal. So I think doing that early on, and you can start off with a Subway sandwich or a pizza on Fridays, so it's all scalable. It's the same conversation. It's just a matter of the size of it, right? So I think going back to the beginning, implementing games at a higher level sooner is definitely something that we would have done. And then it's just building in those systems and models. If you haven't read the MREA, it's a phenomenal read and a good backbone to build off of. And then you implement 4DX and scale, and you've got some really good guidance on what your business should look like and can scale up to.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And something I have a lot of conversations with people about is that it's simple but hard, right? Like it really isn't that complicated. In fact, we make it complicated, but
yeah,
it's really not. It can't, and the bigger you get, the less complicated it can really be, because you're getting 24, 50, 100 people doing the same thing. You're rowing in the same direction,
Yeah. And you understand that, you're in the people business, so whether it's with our end consumer client or whether it's people in our organizations we're growing it, we're in the people business, and you're changing behavior. So it's behavior modification. So what's the 1 or 2, and that's what goes back to the 4DX principle. What are the 1 or 2 things that I can do today that if I do those things, make everything else really irrelevant, but I got to do those couple things. So that's lead generate, have my real estate conversations, set an appointment, and go on an appointment. And
right.
if I can do those things, and you can hammer those home every single day on right. the sales side of the business, right? And then same thing on the operational side. Each person in the business has a 20% that they have to execute on that. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So, and I think we'll have time to hit actually the other 3 areas, and then also dig into Q&A and share the deals, because I think people we'll really get a lot of that. I think we're going to have a lot of questions for you too. So I want to make sure we have time. In no particular order, let's talk again a little more about the partner side of things. Like if you were, and again, for the sake of other people being on, like if they were looking for a partner, like how would one go about doing that?
Yeah, great question. So, and I think this goes even for hiring talent, whether even it's a partner, but we'll start with the partnership. So I think getting your ego out of the way, and realizing, that great companies are built with great people. Don't look for people that are less talented than you. That's a security issue. Go see a therapist. Work through that on a couch, have a conversation around that, and then and then you go find the most talented people that you can possibly invite into your world. And, so understanding that as the leader of your business, your job is to create opportunities, and really talented people want really big opportunities. And I think understanding that there's alignment around, if we're talking about the partnership relationship, around how you see business and what's important, that alignment is dialed in. And then if you haven't done a DISC assessment or a deep personality profile assessment, and figuring out what your strength zone is, do not get into business with somebody that has the same strengths as you. You get into, that's that visionary integrator role that we're talking about in Rocketfuel, and making sure that your strengths complement each other so you can cover a broader base, right? For us, we have a passion around teachers. We have a passion around ovarian cancer. We started a nonprofit last year, a 503c, for women that were battling ovarian cancer and covering some travel costs that insurance doesn't cover. And so when you got good goal alignment that way, then figuring out the rest of it just becomes an everyday thing, and you can manage that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that it helps you not get fixated on the details of it. You've got this big thing you want to do, and then you just kind of, again, eat the elephant as you go through it. I think, one other thing I want to mention on the talent side that I have a lot of experience with and working with people on is that people tend to hire people they like, so it's a quick, which means they're kind of like them, it's like, oh, and I say it with love, but I always tell people, we don't need another you. We have a you, we don't need another you. We need a not you is what we need. Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to do that, whether it's reading the book, understanding it, using the profiles, but a mindset ultimately is what it is, right? It's like, you've got to want somebody who wants it as bad as you, not worry that they're going to take your business, and kind of have all those things, fall into place. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but I'd love it if you do.
No, I think so. I think two things. If you're going to do a partnership, set up your divorce papers up front. If you can't have a conversation about how you're going to get out of business, don't get into business. There's just an evolution to that, and making sure that's just clear before you start. And I think, as far as hiring talent, I think I was at a mastermind with Gary Keller, and he said something, and it just resonated with me. And get into business with people that want to do business the way that you want to do business with, and don't apologize for it. And I that just stuck with me, and I was like, that's it. If I look at the relationships that were a struggle for us, that was really at the core root of it. The performance was a result, right? But if you go back to the core of it, is we do business a certain way, and it's not how everybody wants to do business. It's not what everybody else is shooting for. But for our tribe that gets that, wow, this is cool stuff, man. It's hard to replicate. And so being really clear, you are who you are. I'm freaking hilarious. I think I'm the funniest guy on the planet. Now, nobody else does, but I do. So, you are who you are, right? And be authentic about who you are, and you're going to attract people where they're okay with that personality. And then then you can do some really cool stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, the right people tracking, good data and making decisions based on that with a common goal or a clear, simple plan. I mean, that's it. Like there's your secret sauce, mic drop,
Yeah. And when you're talking about scaling, the business and partnerships, especially within hiring is part of that, right? Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly at first, so whether you're going to start, implementing KPIs, whether you're going to start implementing some of the back-end reporting that Follow Up Boss has integrated in their system, you're not going to get it right. Get okay with it. But guess what? You're better than you were yesterday. And then you just keep executing on it every single day. And there's just a progression to it. Yep.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've always said you've got momentum in one direction, right? You're either getting better or you're getting worse. There is no stagnant. That's a myth, which is actually I kind of stole from Gary Keller a little bit too, to be totally fair. I did see a quick question come up that was super relevant. We're going to hit more of the questions at the end, but somebody just asked about, at least the short thing I saw of it was about firing somebody or letting somebody go, or sort of that concept. Can you speak a little bit to because we mentioned the exit, from the details of the exit, if you have to do it.
This is a great question. And this is where, being a good steward of people in business, there's a skill and an art to letting people go out of your organization and getting good at it. And the way that you get good at it is to do a lot of it, right? It's like anything else. The more that you do it, the better you get at it. That's just the way it works. But I think understanding that for us, a lot of times it's self-discovery for the other person. You know, when somebody gets into business with us, we're very, very clear about expectations. You know, this is how we do business here. We start at 9:15. We have a gratitude huddle every morning. We do skills training at noon. We have script and dialogue training twice a week. The expectation is you're going to have 50 real estate conversations every day. And we want to know what your financial goal is. And then we're going to do backwards math. And then the expectation is you're going to do the lead indicators that you committed to. That's your commitment to the team. The team's commitment is we're going to generate 350 leads. We're going to give you follow-up boss. We're going to give you CSU. We're going to give you all the coaching, training, and environment. And making sure that on the front side, you don't set yourself up as a lead pimp. You know, I don't want people to get in business with me just because we're giving them leads, right? We want to get in business with people that want to grow a big business and they want coaching, they want development, and setting those expectations. So if it doesn't work on the back end, you can just hold up a mirror and say, hey, this is what you committed to and it's not working. And maybe this isn't the best environment for you. And I want the best for you, but it's not working with you and it's not working with the team. Let's see if we can get you someplace where you can grow and you can foster, because I don't want to watch you drown here.
Yeah.
And
I think that's great advice. And I think, you know, when I worked directly with one specific team, we had that where we had monthly reviews of numbers and all that. And it's pretty clear when it's coming. It was funny. One of the guys would always joke. He would always joke. He's like, am I getting fired? I'm like, dude, we'll have like 3 conversations about how you're not doing what you need to be doing before you're going to be getting fired, you know? So,
well, and I think that's, you know, as a business owner, I think we've gotten infinitely better. Is having, when you have a conversation every day about performance every morning, you're going, okay, you were supposed to have 30 conversations, you know, through Wednesday of this week, and you've only got 22. Are you going to solve that, and how, and can we help you? Or is it just a choice and you're not going to do it? In which case we can't stay in business, and I love you. I'll see you at the bar on Friday night, but we can't stay in business during daytime hours.
Right.
And that's
great advice. And I love what you said too about maybe there is another team that's a better fit for them. And maybe that's a win-win. You help them go there and that works for them and it's good on you. Yeah. And keep on trucking, you know?
I always I tease around a little bit. I've been dumped enough times as a young man growing up that I learned the breakup scripts. So I'm really good at those. So I just implement those in the business.
That's funny. I'm not sure that I can or should say anything to that. So we're going to go to the next segment. Talking a little bit about mindset. And what I'd really love to do is talk first about you personally.
Okay.
I don't know if it's morning routine, whatever you feel is appropriate to like mindset daily, and then maybe mindset shift even when times are tough.
Yeah, and of course that's the big topic right now with, you know, what we're going through, you know, and it's a little bit different, obviously, this go around than 2008. 2008, it happened to real estate. Now it's a pandemic and moving into a recession and unemployment, you know, at 33%. You know, so it's getting really, really clear. I think for me, fighting the battles that I can win, you know, it's being really, really clear. There's a ton of things I can't affect. And so I need to double down and triple down right now on the things that are the most important for our company and for our families to survive. And then on the backside of that, start stacking up opportunities so that we can thrive on the backside. You know, and so I think how I manage that, I'm an early morning guy. So it's exercise, meditate and pray, get up, do exercise. I get through my 20% before we start our gratitude huddles at 9. We've got people in different time zones, so it allows me to get a little bit of a jump start on that. And I think being really clear that there's so much garbage in the world, putting good stuff in is so important. You know, so whether it's watching a webinar, is taking in, you know, Tom Ferry's taking in you guys, Jeff Cohn, whoever, taking in some of those things that we can implement and execute into our business, and making sure that I've got a 20 or 30 minute segment around that. And then reading something that's going to be, I'm a reader. My goal last year was to read 52 books. I got to the end of the year and I was behind. So I was doing the Audible and I was reading a book at the same, and I got it all mixed and matched.
At like 1.7 speed.
I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Right. Yeah. So I was chasing a goal for a number that was
how not to do your KPIs.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's just being intentional about pouring, your business will never outgrow you, so as big as a leader as you become, that's the size of organization that you're going to grow. And it's really hard if you're not working on your leadership skills and developmental skills for yourself. You get somebody that's really talented leader, and you're not above them. That's going to be that there's going to be a disconnect there at some point. One of the things we do is we do a book club we offer it. The last two that we've done, everybody has shown up. We just finished the book Shift because of the market that we're in. So we had everybody in the company do that. The one prior to that was the 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. And if you've got a team, taking your team through that book, there's a workbook and the written book about how to develop talent and leadership in your company. Oh my gosh. Wow. You want to talk about moving the needle? You get everybody thinking differently.
That's great. Yeah. And I saw Megan posted this earlier, but we'll definitely pull together a book list, maybe even some that we don't get to in this. Sure. I'm familiar with most of the ones you mentioned, but there's even a few that I've written down a few here that I'm going to dig into as well. And I want to just emphasize your point of kind of sharpening your axe and sharpening it in the right direction, because I think a lot of us get into this business as a solo agent. We have some success. We add somebody else because that's the next logical thing to do. But we don't always think in terms of growing ourselves as a business owner.
Right.
We're still like a top salesperson with a bunch of other people around. And again, having that plan, maybe it's you hire that. If you're not that person, maybe you'd stay in production and hire that person. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think sharpening your axe every day is where it's at.
It's a game changer. Business is an intellectual business, right? So you have to spend time on business principles and understanding what that looks like. And if you're a top producer and you love just selling, go do that, man, and hire somebody into your world or partner with somebody that's really good and enjoys and thrives on the business development side of it, right? Just because everybody else is doing it one way doesn't make it right for you. You just, again, it's finding that right partnership. I think I heard a quote the other day, it's better to be a good swimmer than catch a big wave. I think when you look at business, right, we have these waves and we're used to seasonal cycles of business. We're up in the spring, we're mid-year, we're down a little bit, fall, we creep up, Christmas, we taper off. Most teams kind of follow that rhythm. We happen to be an exception to that, but we get that. We don't get that over a 10 or 20-year period around the major economic cycles. And so you have to be a good swimmer to navigate those seasonally and then also over the course of a decade or two. And so being a good swimmer is the things we're talking about, implementing core business principles in, looking at your numbers every day, focusing on profit more than focusing on production. It's great to have big numbers, but having big numbers and not having profit and not having profit goals makes no sense. That's just an ego conversation. Right. So it's those basic business things that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And building that strong foundation so that when things like this do happen, you're in a position to be able to pivot or to have money in the bank or have ancillary businesses or whatever those things are. It all really makes sense. Do you have anything else? And I want to go into the ancillary businesses next. Do you have anything else on the mindset type, like tactical stuff?
Yeah. I think tactically, surround yourself with top producers. If you want one thing tactically that you can implement, and if you're a solo agent, there's enough of these groups. I know you guys had Albert Vasquez on last week, I think. It's funny because Albert runs Follow Up Boss, and we missed each other. I saw him on social media, and I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, I just picked up the phone and called the guy and said, "Hey, my name's Pete, and I live in Tucson. I've been kind of following you, and we kind of missed each other at the Follow Up Boss seminar, and we just started talking about our businesses, right?" And you get to the point where you're very intentional about finding people that you want to spend time with that are going to elevate your game. And the conversations that you have there change everything because it changes how you see everything. So tactically, being intentional about who you spend your time with and how that's going to affect everything else is just a game changer. And then building in that cadence every day, building in a rhythm of how you do business, how you wake up, it feels good. You feel like you're in control when you can't control a lot of the other things that are on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more than ever, it's funny. I'm glad you said that because was thinking earlier in this session a little bit about that. We live in a really unprecedented time for connecting with anyone. I mean, you can connect to just about anyone now. Obviously you want to be tasteful about it and come from contribution, not just be like, hey, but
Sure.
it's easier more than ever to connect with great people and as you referenced, you'll find that a lot of them are thrilled to share.
Sure.
They love talking about business and giving good advice.
When I was running the KW offices here in Tucson, once a week I would call another CEO team leader somewhere else in the country, and it was always the same conversation. I would just call up and say, "Hey, Lee, Pete Peterson down in Tucson. Hey, do you have 2 minutes? I'd like to ask you a couple questions. What's the one thing that you implemented in your business that you knocked out of the park last year? And then what was one thing that you struggled with in your business last year that if you could go back and come up with a solution to it would be helpful?" And then I just started connecting people together that were doing something great that somebody else told me they were struggling with. In the meantime, I got to listen to guys that were doing something really, really well, or gals, and implement it back in our business and then come from contribution the same way. And again, it was just intentionality. It was just being intentional about doing that and coming from contribution, not wanting to take something from somebody.
I hope that gets bolded in the write-up of this. I think that is there's so many great, amazing takeaways, but I think that's a big one that people can do without any fancy, knowledge or background or,
Sure.
anybody can do that.
Yep.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the ancillary businesses. I actually shockingly aren't a bunch of questions. Happy to launch into Q&A if people have questions to throw in the chat. But how did you first get into anything beyond like, hey, I have a real estate team, or hey, I'm running a real estate company?
Yeah. So I was an investor first. So we've owned mobile home parks. That was kind of our investment of choice. So we gravitated towards that on the commercial side. So it started off with the commercial side, actually doing commercial sales that focused on mobile home parks and apartment complexes. And of course, that leads into investments. And so one of the things that we've done is we've created opportunities for our agents that if they bring opportunities that we purchase, we actually give them an ownership interest in those investments on top of their commissions as just a way of retaining our talented folks. And so that started it. We've just worked on a mortgage opportunity that we're going in as investors on currently. And then insurance. We launched an insurance company. There was a gal here in Tucson that had an insurance company, needed some systems and models, a ridiculously talented lady, and had just done a really good job of getting it off the ground, but kind of get to that next level. That's the what we're talking about with the visionary and the integrator, and brought in systems and models and a lot of the things that we use with Follow Up Boss and CSU and implementing some of that on the insurance side. And it's close. We're staying in our wheelhouse. We understand the products. We understand the space. One thing feeds the other, and keeping it close to what we do. So whether that's investments, buying and selling, multifamily properties, commercial brokerage, the residential side of it, or the insurance side of it, it's all very close and in the same hemisphere. And that served us well.
That's great. Yeah, that's super cool. And I think I'm surprised we don't see a little bit more of that. I know people have like relationships with people they recommend, but I'm surprised there aren't more joint ventures, MSAs. It's a little different. Obviously, RESPA stuff changed some of that. But it's interesting that more people don't do that, especially as business owners or business leaders. You would think they'd be bundling other businesses.
Well, I think one of the lessons that I learned is I was an investor first, and then I moved into sales. So I was an investor, and I went into sales, and I had to keep toggling back and forth between managing our properties and running that business, and then trying to do sales and scale up that business. And so this time last year, we actually bought a local property management company. And one of the reasons we went after the property management company is because we wanted to continue to invest and do investment opportunities with our agents. And I knew that if we didn't have the management piece solved, we would get pulled off of what we do well, which is sales and building this business. And you get pulled into we're giving up a lot of revenue to try and build a new business, and it makes no sense. And so by having the property management company, we could actually go acquire properties, dump it into property management, and have in-house property management on our investments.
So there's a couple of questions I want to get into, but I got to go a little deeper on that. How
Sure.
does that conversation happen? Is that you? Is that Angie? Is it both of you? Like, how does that go from zero to we own a property management company?
We wanted to do more investments, so, and that was the conversation was, okay, so if we buy, a 50 unit apartment complex or a 100 unit mobile home park, we buy 5 more houses, who's going to manage that? Well, we need to hire somebody. Well, if we're going to hire somebody to manage our stuff, let's just buy a property management company and have the revenue from that take care of the salary. And then we can just backfill it with the investments that we purchase. So we were sitting in a Starbucks one day having a cup of coffee, and we had just finished having it. And a guy walks in the door that I've known for 15, who owns a property management company. And I look up and say, hey, Chris, you ever thought about selling? Actually, I'm kind of getting to the point where I might do that. 15 days later, we wrote a contract to be on a property management company. And she was just like, really? Seriously? Yeah.
I love it. All right. I changed my mind. That's the bold headline for the session. No more nuggets. Stop. We're running out of space on the paper. No, that's awesome. A quick question popped through that I want to talk about, and I do want to hop into deals for a split second, but I also want to respect people's time. I saw one quick question, somebody asking about a disc profile. I think it was specifically for an agent. If you could just speak to maybe disc for management / operations versus a disc for an agent at a high level would be great.
Sure. So one of the things, again, scaling up, I moved to a system called WizeHire, WIZEHIRE. They have actually taken, so we do all of our job posts through WizeHire. They have the disc embedded. So when people apply for it, they get a link, they fill out the desk, and then we get all that information. So, and they will actually job match the job that you're looking for with the disc profile for you. So you actually get the compatibility score back. You don't have to do 5 or 6 conversations to solve that. So, that high DI is ideal. They're going to drive. They love people. They love interaction. They want to go. They're terrible with details. They fill out half their purchase contracts. They forget to initial everything. And that's where the admin comes in, is to help us solve that. Right. But what I've learned is there's a typical behavioral style where people flourish in that position, but there's always an exception too. We've got 1 or 2 agents in our world that are not that high DI, that crush it in sales. They're ridiculously competitive. Marcy's just one of those people on our team where she's just not that DI personality, but once she gets the hang of something, man, she's a holy terror, right? So we really get deep into past performance, regardless of behavioral style. So if they're in a sales position, we look backwards and see, were they having success, and is it something we can scale up, and will they do the activities? So I think with the disc assessment and the sales side, when they're not a high DI, getting them to do a lot of the lead indicator stuff, that can be a bit of a struggle, because behaviorally it's not a natural fit for them. So you're stretching them out behaviorally. On the admin side, depending on which admin we're talking about, more of that SC personality, very warm, very engaging, great interpersonal skills, getting a client on the phone and making them feel loved and valued, but also really good with details to make sure we don't have the gaps. Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's really, that's such good information. Let's go ahead and hop into that deal screen a little bit and take a look at some of those changes. And then I got a couple of quick questions for you that we'll wrap on.
You bet.
But I think Megan's going to share her screen. Just making sure. I think she just pinged me. Yeah. So.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to share it right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
And so, Pete, we're okay to share your deals, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
You bet.
okay. Cool. Awesome. So, Pete, do you want to share a bit about sort of how your team is looking at this? And I'm happy to answer any questions on it as well.
Yeah, so this is just brand new that you guys have just launched out. And so we run Sisu in conjunction with Follow Up Boss, but the reporting, both the deals and the reporting that Follow Up Boss has built into it, we use the reporting because we have Sisu for the lag indicators. And this is brand new. We haven't implemented this piece that we're looking at into it yet. We use the reporting more on the lead side. So 5-minute response times, all those lead indicators that we were talking about earlier, we run through, we pay, our lead coordinator is tracking all that in Follow Up Boss. And if you don't have a CSU or commitment to excellence with what Follow Up Boss is building in here, there's a really good chance they're going to solve a lot of this for you with this new integration. But it just walks you through appointment set to appointment met, and then your buyer contracts. And then everything else after that is going to be your lag indicators. And it's just a great way of being able to break it down, both as your team, and then from a coaching perspective, opening it up and looking at it with your agents and spending 15 and 20 minutes every week on this pipeline, this screen with them on their business is a game changer.
For sure. And just for everybody that has not seen this before, this is running off of your deal stages, right? So, you'd actually build in those deal stages under your deals tab, and this is what it's reporting off of. So you're going to get a lot of great information here, in terms of time to close and how long somebody has been in a particular stage, et cetera. So this is our first version of this. So certainly check it out, use it, give us feedback.
Yeah, love it. It's great especially for a small team. This is awesome. Awesome.
That's great. We had a quick question that you may have just answered. Somebody asked about what's your top Follow-Up Boss technique or strategy or recommendation? Is there anything, deals are not specific to Follow-Up Boss, that's, if you could give one thing?
I think for us, it's a moving target because your business is always changing. I think, and that's one of the things we love about Follow Up Boss is, as we've grown and expanded and got into new markets, what's a gap for us now is not the gap that we had, 6 months ago. So for right now in the reporting stage, the 5-minute response times. So 5-minute response times to inbound leads. And the way that Follow Up Boss clocks it is based on whether it's during work hours or whether it's the middle of the night, right? So on our reporting, if Megan pulled it up, you'd see that we're actually not anywhere close to a 5-minute response time because it takes the whole 24-hour period into play. So if we get leads in the middle of the night, that works against us. So for us, it's speed to lead. And I think that's the one thing that we've really focused on with our agents and held them accountable. And that's been a big driver of our conversion rates. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
That's what you can find here, right? Like there's a lot of things that you can actually track.
Yeah, if you haven't gotten into this piece of Follow Up Boss and you're not using this is huge. I mean, you can look at it and say, okay, how many calls have we had? So if in the background there, you can see a few of our metrics where we're up or where we're down, and it allows us to focus our business in real time on what we need to focus on. So you can actually see, our total number of calls, we're up 38% for this time period. So this was March through April. So the last 30 days, we're up. Our activity there is up, but our texts are actually down. So one of the conversations we've been having is not only do we want our agents to have 10 conversations per day, but we want them to have 10 texting conversations per day right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, I think we should do a session with Pete dedicated to deals. We could do a full hour on deals. I think that's in our future.
Yeah. Just understanding that this is available to anybody that runs the Follow Up Boss system and looking at this, it allows you, we run off of feelings. We think we know something, and then you open up and you look at the metrics and you go, oh, wow. We're crushing it with calls and we're crushing it with emails, the last 30 days, but texting, which we should be really good at because we've got a building full of millennials. Let's just solve that gap and let's figure out a way to go do that. And it makes all the difference in the world.
That's awesome. So I want to respect people's time, but I want to wrap with 2 questions. And I know Megan has to jump quickly too.
Sure.
2 last questions for you. And then we're definitely having you back on. That's a fact. I'd love to hear your biggest failure that you can share within reason. And then we'll wrap with your biggest success or biggest learning experience that pushed you forward.
Oh, wow. Shortcutting the process and hiring. Our businesses are just our people, right? When you look at it, it's just the totality of it is Stratton is the people inside the business. And so hire slow, fire fast. And I think, we learned that early on with hiring too fast and not slowing down the hiring process and making sure that we had great goal alignment with the people that we were getting into business with, cost us a lot, a lot. Biggest success, geez Luis, is probably, I know it sounds just, it's hiring great people. When you get talented people in your world, we hired a great admin. Denise was our first, she was just, it was just like she became an attraction in our business for other great admins to work with. And my business partner, my biggest success with Stratton has definitely been my partnership with Angie. Our connectivity in our business, our ability to communicate and hold each other up when one's not quite firing right, or we need to cover some extra ground and there's just not contention around that, for sure.
That's amazing. That's great. Thank you so much, Pete. You have such,
Yeah.
I mean, I wish you could see all the comments. I mean, people are just like, we should do this every week. We could go 2 hours, and I'd love to, but we want to respect your time as well. And any parting words for all your Follow Up Boss people?
No, I think you got, Follow Up Boss has been a great source for us, focusing on your lead metrics, getting that cadence accountability built into your systems, and then just surrounding yourself with great people inside your organization out, and it's just execute, replicate it, come from contribution, give back, love on people a little bit, make some bad jokes, go sell a bunch of houses.
Love it. That's great advice. You're a good, man. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's great being here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Pete.
Absolutely. And yes, it's a dry heat.